Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
And this is Patrick Riggins with the Patrick Riggins Show, coming back for the second half with fun and excitement and, more importantly, news, information, and why you should be thinking like a libertarian. Anyway, this week, the city of Knoxville, which is I'm just going to cover this local one real quick. I understand that this show reaches 5 states and across parts of 2 time zones, but we want to hit a little local stuff here too, because I think the example, just like we talked about last week, applies everywhere locally, because these same issues are coming up. The city of Knoxville, they've been crying about the county not rubber stamping the schools' $35 million increase, which is coming up for a vote. And really, that $35 million increase is really disingenuous, because it's not just a $35 million increase. I noted as such on the show. Here's a little clip from that from last week. Schools would actually be getting a $48 million increase over last year. You see, $13 million is so-called natural growth, meaning they get that whether you like it or not. And then the $35 million is over and above that. Thus, the entire Knox County school budget is now almost $424 million. In fact, if you add in the federal and state money, Knox County Schools spent $518 million last year. That's $500 million just to educate students here in Knox County. So, with all this controversy swirling around about budgets, the city of Knoxville feels it is a good idea to get started spending money on the South Knoxville waterfront. Just in case you're not keeping score, when they spend taxpayers' money, they are spending your money. The justification is that they hope, and I will say that word again, just so it sinks in good and deep, they hope it will spur private investment. This is exactly what government does not need to be doing, spending our hard-earned money in the hope that something good comes of it. Private companies, which are just fronts for private citizens, they all want to make money. That is why they are in business. They want to make money. If they thought they could do it by investing on the waterfront of Knoxville, well, then they'd do so. If they don't think they can get a good return on their investment in that area, then they won't put their money up. But far too many times, government decides its role is to try and goad the private sector into investing money into what it deems is important. And if that doesn't work, then government will frequently pass regulations mandating investment. Now, what the city needs to do is concentrate on providing the necessary services, such as police protection, and let the private sector decide if the waterfront needs development or not. You know, that is not good enough for the busybodies in government. They see other metropolitan areas with developed waterfronts and feel like we should do that as well, even if they have to spend your money to make it happen. I mean, make no mistake, their friends from those other areas, those other metropolitan areas, come to Knoxville and tell them, hey, you should have a nice waterfront like we do. So some people here in Knoxville want the waterfront developed because, daggone it, they're getting tired of being made fun of by their friends from out of town. Now, they don't want to spend their money on it. No, they want to spend your money on it, because if it doesn't work out, oh well, at least they have some nice walking trails to enjoy. Bought and paid for, by the way, with your taxpayer dollars. You see, you need to always run these news stories in the paper, on television, on the internet, through your libertarian filter that this radio show is helping you to develop. When you see politicians delighted to spend more of your money on a project, and the newspaper actually described one city councilman as getting excited, about the prospect of this very thing, you need to start holding on to your wallet and making phone calls to let them know you don't agree with this. Not because you're mean-spirited or want to deprive someone of something, but because it is not right for government to recklessly spend taxpayers' money on things it has no business doing. Again, we'll go back to a show clip from just this last week when I talked about this. Giving me the argument that the difference on taxes is, maybe 2 cents or even $1 on your tax bill. It does not matter. Doing what is right is what matters. No matter how small the payback, no matter how small the return, you are doing what is right, and that is the important thing. Thoughtlessly spending people's tax money on items in the budget because, quote, that's just how we've always done it, is not the way to put together a budget. And that is one thing you will always hear on this show: consistency. This show will always be fighting for the freedom and liberty of the individual. And an important part of this freedom and liberty is depriving the government of any and all extra money it feels it might need. Because unlike the private sector, where the pie gets bigger and it is not a zero-sum game, it is a zero-sum game with the government. When it gets more money, you get less. Because the government has to take your money in order to do the things it does. This is just how it works. Despite what the media and the politicians will tell you, government cannot create wealth. It can only take wealth. And we need to be sure it is obeying the Constitution and only spending it in ways it is allowed. And when it seeks to expand its options on spending, then we need to very carefully look at what it wants to do. 9 times out of 10, we can safely deny them the request. So if you're not, quote, getting excited, unquote, as the city council is about spending money on something we shouldn't, then you need to get on the phone or send an email or letter to your city council representative and tell them to stop spending all this money on stuff it has no business funding. Because remember, as I always say on this show, these people work for you. Make sure they know you are watching them and that you're not going to tolerate them wasting your hard-earned money.